Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to start today with lesson 4, and I want to go over some of the highlights in lessons 4, 5, and 6 that you're going to really see when you get ready to do your text questions and your critical thinking questions, and also what's going to really be very important when you do your project. So I just want to point out some of those things. I think it will really help you if you watch this video and especially before you get to the project. So the first thing it's talking about is becoming an entrepreneur. And basically it tells you that it's a lot of hard work. And you have to be really invested in the business to make it successful and to be able to overcome the different risks that you're going to come across as you do this. And so down here, it discusses several of the different reasons that people become entrepreneurs and that people start their own businesses. And one of your discussion questions is going to talk about these different reasons, and it's going to ask you to decide on a type of business and then tell me why. Which reason is it that you would want to begin a business of your own and take that risk? And one of the reasons, a few of you have already gotten to this, and one of the reasons I'm seeing very often pop up is that you're following a passion. A couple of you have said something like you love baking or you love makeup. I mean, I personally love baking. If I was going to start a business, I would be very passionate about starting a bakery. It would be something I would be very interested in and very passionate about. And that's one of the reasons that people do start businesses, is that they just feel very passionate about a certain activity. And there's a video you're going to watch a little bit later on in your unit, and it's going to really dive into passion. Another one is just simply to fill a need. A lot of times people see something, see a need that just isn't being filled, and so they kind of happen into a business. And you're going to talk a little bit later, you're going to watch a little bit of a video and read some things on the Happy Camper business. And the neat thing about the Happy Camper business is you're going to hear the term, it was a happy accident. He saw a need and he ended up filling it without ever sitting down and going through the thought process of, I want to start this business. What do I need to do? He kind of happened into it because there was a need there. Sometimes people are just trying to do something even better than anybody else is, and they think that there's a business that they really feel like they can improve upon, and that they're inspired. And that some of that kind of goes back a little bit to passion, the passion of making it better. And then sometimes people truly do invent a product. And again, with that Happy Camper, a lot of times what you're going to see is that businesses, they don't necessarily, and entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily fit into just one of these categories. Sometimes they're very passionate about something and they happen to end up creating a product because of that passion. You're going to see that these overlap a lot in business as well. So that is lesson 4. And I'm really excited to hear from all of you and hear what you're interested in, and then also hear why you think you would want to start a business. Is it passion? Do you see that there's a need that's not being filled? I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this. Okay. Now I want to move over to lesson 5. And lesson 5, I can get it to load here, is going to dive more into why we become an entrepreneur and more like the types of the businesses that they have. This is a little bit more on the business side of it. Before we were talking about reasons that things start. Here's kind of the legality of it. And what is the best way for you to have a successful business? What kind of business do you need to set up? So at the very beginning in lesson 1, we talked about Emil, who was he started a lawn mowing business. So he had a sole proprietorship, and that is pretty common. But the negative to that is if you have a sole proprietorship and you know, open a little baking business and you get a bunch of people sick, you personally are liable for everything that just happened. That's the problem, is the liability. So that individual that owns the business is responsible for any problems or damages that might happen. So another type of business is a partnership, and that's pretty common. So you have to, this is a legal, you're going to have like a legally binding document that's going to make you and your partner partners. And the nice thing about a partnership is that it has some benefits. It allows you to share the load with other people. And that is really one of the biggest benefits. It is definitely more complex to set up because it is you have to go through some legal documents and work to get a partnership set up. And then you can't just close your business down as a partnership. If one partner wants out, you have to go through the process legally of drawing out of that business. A corporation is it is bigger, obviously. It doesn't have to be significantly bigger, though. We tend to think corporation, I mean, here we are in Northwest Arkansas, we think Walmart or Tyson, and that's true. But corporations can be very, very small as well. But they basically have shareholders, they'll have a board of directors. This is probably not something that most of you are going to, as you start to think about starting your own business, you're probably not going to jump to the corporation right away. It's probably something that will come later down the road. And the LLC, this is one that I really want to talk a little bit about because it's very similar in some ways to a corporation, and it's very similar to a sole proprietorship in that except with the biggest exception being that it protects you. So if I form an LLC, I am protected. If I own a bakery and it's an LLC and I get somebody sick from my food, they can't come after me. They can't come after my savings account and my home and my car. Whereas in a sole proprietorship, they can. In an LLC, but they can't. And so there are advantages and there are disadvantages to that. But it does keep your business separate from your personal life. And that is one of the biggest advantages to forming an LLC. Okay, let's move on to lesson 6. And I really want to stop here for a little bit because this is what your project is really going to talk about, and that is risk. So there is risk, and we throw that word around a lot, risk, but risk in business is different. There are lots of different types of risk. You have natural risk, you have economic risk, you have a human risk factor, and these are something that your project is going to ask you to think about, not just only identifying some risk, but then also coming up with some solutions to be prepared for it. Okay, so the risk is basically just what could go wrong. What can go wrong in your business? And there are a lot of things that can go wrong. And you're going to dive a little bit later in your next unit into insurable risk and non-insurable risk, but we're not quite there yet. So what we're really wanting to do now is just think about risk. You know, I mentioned if I was going to open a bakery, well, there are risks to me opening a bakery. I have the risk that if I open a small little personal bakery here in Northwest Arkansas, Rick's Bakery is very, very well known. It's a big bakery. People drive from all over Northwest Arkansas to get their cakes and treats from there. Well, what if I open my little bakery in Rogers and next door Rick's Bakery opens? Do you think I'm going to stay in business? That's a risk that I am taking, is that another business might open next door to me. There's a natural risk. What if there's a fire? What if there's a flood or a tornado comes through? There's that risk as well. There's the human risk of just, what if I hire employees and one day they just all don't show up to work? That's a risk I'm taking. So your project is going to ask you to start a dog walking business, and you are a dog walker. So, what are some risks associated with that? There are a lot. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of a lot. And I want you to put some time into this and think about this. And there are a couple of you that have done this already, and you have come up with some really very good, very interesting risks, very good and very interesting ways to just be prepared for those risks and offset some of those risks. And I'm really enjoying those of you that have done it, looking at your projects, because you have some really, really good creative ideas to deal with risk. But the risk in your business is always going to be there. It will not go away. Whether it be related to your equipment or to your location or to your employees or to your product, there's always going to be risk. So, for example, with your dog walking business, it's going to ask you to identify 3 risks and then come up with 3 solutions to those risks. And I hope that you take some time, put some interesting graphics in it, come up, give me some really good descriptions of the risk that you are trying to avoid. And thinking about this too from a standpoint of, you guys are high school students and you're opening a dog walking business. So what's the risk for you being in that 15 to 18 year range of your age versus if somebody was much older and doing this, because you guys do have school. So that's time might be a risk factor for you as well. And then transportation. There's a lot of risk that you can identify in this project. So far, everybody seems to be doing really well in the class. I'm really excited. I enjoy reading your comments on your discussion boards. I enjoy reading your answers to your questions. Really, really good, interesting thoughts. Make sure that you are checking my feedback. I try to give you some feedback on everything, just to give you maybe something else to think about or just a different point of view. So I'm encouraging you to make sure that you're going through with that feedback. As always, I am available for Zoom sessions most mornings and afternoons. I know a lot of you are in class at the high school, so after school is a possibility if needed as well. But I want you to be successful in this class. I think this is a really interesting topic. I think as teenagers, you can absolutely be entrepreneurs and start your businesses if you would want to. A couple of you have already thrown out some interesting ideas of things that you're thinking about. I'm really excited to see those ideas develop this year. So if you have any questions, send me an email. We can set up a Zoom session if needed, but and we can always go back and forth through email as well if needed. So if you have questions, let me know. But I'm really excited to get started. I'm really excited to see your projects start to come in. Please be conscientious of your pacing. This is a year-long class, but you do have that first semester time frame to finish the first semester, and I want you guys to finish, and I want you to finish strong. So at each checkpoint, I'm going in and putting in those 50%. If you haven't turned things in by checkpoint days. So you can always go back and redo those. There's an automatic redo on them. But if you have questions or you're concerned about your pacing, I probably have sent you an email if I'm concerned about your pacing. So just keep your pace, keep on top of it, and let me know if you have any questions.